I skipped yesterday by accident, but also I have not been. My mind has not been that active in the past couple days, so I didn't actually have much to say anyway. But okay, let's talk about. Okay, today I started. I got the audiobook for Solve for Happy by Mo Gaudat, which was actually I was interested in it because of his podcast with Stephen Bartlett on Diary of a CEO, and that was what made me decide to go to the library and see if I could borrow it. And that was when I started listening to the audiobooks, because I realized I could just use my library card to listen to audiobooks for free, like a bunch of them. And so I put it on hold, and it finally showed up because so many people wanted it, I guess, or had it on hold. And it is very interesting. I'm not that far in, but it's all extremely reasonable. And basically, he started with his story, which I mostly knew about because he already told the story on the podcast. But I guess his point is basically to remove unhappiness from your life. Because when you are not unhappy, that's basically what happiness is. It's not euphoria or fun, which you feel when you distract yourself with maybe funny videos, which you can enjoy, or, or drinks, or parties, or whatever, which if you can have your fun in healthy ways, of course. But his point is that in order to remove unhappiness, the most important thing is to understand that your unhappiness comes from thoughts and not events. For example, if something happened to you in the past, the unhappiness of it does not come from the pain of the event itself, but the continued thought of it. The example he uses, which I really like, is to think of something that made you unhappy in the past, and you will likely feel unhappiness at the thought of it. But if you're to change your thought and think of something else, then the unhappiness goes away, and you feel better. So your feelings is directly proportionate to what you're thinking about. And now, of course, you can say, "Oh, but I have this problem, I have that problem." But it's like, usually these things are in the past or the future. Now, that doesn't mean you should just be happy and not solve problems, but you focus on the problems as you're solving it, and before and after, if you let it spill over into your life, then your life will just be perpetually unhappy. I guess. It's not that simple, of course, but, I think it's a very interesting book. Now, you can't just read the book and go, yeah, now I'm happy. Obviously, you still have to solve the problems in your life. But if you let events cloud your mind by staying in your mind before the event, after the event, and pollute your timeline through thoughts, then you're going to be unhappy all the time. Whereas if you just accept that things are going to go up and down, and you're just going through the adventure, then you can be happy even as the events change, because happiness isn't the momentary feelings of I like what's happening and I don't like what's happening. It's the ability to accept that this is the way life is going to be, and basically rolling with the punches, I guess. I'm not too sure. I don't understand it that much well yet. Hopefully I'll understand it better as time goes on. But I decided to mention it because, to make it, to try to process it and think about it more. Okay. I have some other notes. Let me see. Yes, a fascinating discussion. I don't remember who said it, but it was about um, the perception of problems. So, as our problems get solved, we find new ways to make problems. And that's how we have like first world problems, right? You always have something to complain about. And so what happened was they ran an experiment. Now, this experiment isn't that all encompassing, but I still think it's a very interesting example of this phenomenon. And what they did was they took the participants and showed them a number of faces and told them to rate whether or not faces were threatening or not. And what happened was that over time they slowly reduced the threateningness of the faces on average. So like there was less threatening faces, but the percent of the faces that they rated as threatening didn't change. So let's say, so basically it's like if out of 100 faces, the baseline average is say 5 or whatever metric you want to use, just hypothetically, and the ones above 5, the participants rated as threatening, and the ones below 5 they rated as not threatening. If they made it the average 3 and it went from 1 to 6, then now the participants would just rate the ones above 3 as threatening and the ones below 3. So it's not an objective metric, it's a relative metric. The percent of so no matter how little problems you have, you just perceive the percent of events that you perceive as problems remain the same. And that's how we have these first world problems, because we aren't made to no longer see problems once our old problems are solved. We're always meant to look for new problems, which is very interesting. Okay, there was something. Okay, another thing I want to mention, which is that there was this guy on Tom Bilyeu's Impact Theory who he was basically he one of the people who would like did drugs, hung out with the wrong people, drank alcohol, whatever, and then stole everything, and then went to jail, and then eventually he turned his life around. And the most interesting thing that he mentioned was that when he was in jail, he had this one book called Change Your Mindset, Change Your Life, which basically what he did was he read this book like every single day for like a year or something. And then what he would do was every single time he would come to a decision point, he would do the opposite of what he did before. So that was his mindset, right? I'm gonna do what I didn't do before. It doesn't matter if I think this is going to be different or make a difference. I'm going to just do the opposite. And the idea is, as long as I do the opposite, that like by changing my actions, I'm going to change my results. And it worked. But when the thing that interested me the most was when he stopped reading the book, he stopped making changes in his actions, and he started to go back into his old habits, which makes sense, but it's also so interesting how easily it is to stop and like return to your old habits. Okay, so basically what he said was that you have to if you want to stay healthy, you have to exercise every single day. And if you want to change your mindset, you have to you have to use your physical muscles every day. And to change your mindset, you have to use your mindset changing muscle every day. Basically, it's like you have to keep on it to maintain something. You have to work on it every day. And that makes sense, because it's not okay. So here's the thing, right? It's like the way I thought of it before was if you just change your habits and now you have new habits. But now he's saying that you don't just change what you do every day, but you also have to constantly adjust your mind every day, which makes sense, right? Like you intuitively understand and accept that it makes sense. but it's a very interesting way to frame it. I thought that was a very interesting story. I'm getting a bit repetitive, but anyways. Okay. So everybody has the same amount of time, which means you can't have everything. When you look at something that you may want, let's say a house, you also have to evaluate whether or not it's a purchase you want to make with your time, right? It's like you can't just look at something you want and then decide that you're going to buy it. Like if you go into the department store, or if you go to buy clothes, you can wear any of those clothes, but you just choose one. So it's actually, this goes back to the quote from the essays. Life is not about trying many different things, but doing one thing in different ways. I don't know. I like that quote so much, but I can't even remember the exact wording. But yeah, basically, it's you have to make choices, and you also have to understand that the choices you don't make have costs that you didn't make. So the most important thing is to not look at things you don't have and just say, I wish I had that, because if you really wished you had it, you would have chose to pay the price. So by looking at it that way, you add negativity into your mind and regrets into your life, which is why it's very common for people to say that, like, when they're dying, they'll say, I regret not trying this or that. And maybe that's fair, but also, like, when you're in the moment, when you're at the turning point of making those choices and you don't make it, you have to decide right away. Like, you have to decide early whether or not you really want it, and before you decide to not do it, because the act of saying I don't actually want to pay the price to get that reward will free you from the having it in the back of your mind thinking I could do it but I'm not doing it, because that makes you kind of like hate yourself for not doing things you could have done. So by deciding I don't actually want to pay the price for this goal, you remove the future regret and the constant like nagging in the back of your mind over time whenever the thought appears. Because then whenever you think of it, you go, yeah, but I don't actually want it. Instead of, oh, I wish I tried it, or oh, I could do it, but I don't really want to take the risk. But obviously there are some things you might actually want and you're just not doing it, but you have to, it's important to eliminate the ones you don't actually want, to remove the regrets and self-criticism. I think I've actually mentioned this before, but I'm going to do it again because I'm not actually practicing very well. Anyways. Okay, let's see. Anything else? If you're working towards something, or if you're deciding what you want to work towards, you shouldn't look at it as trying to gain a particular result, because the result is going to be very short and it's not going to make you happy forever. It's not like I want to be a doctor and I'm gonna be happy forever because I'm a doctor and I make X amount of money. It's like you have to look at it in terms of what you do, not what you become or what you gain. Because if you go, I want to do the things that a doctor does, like, study medical textbooks, whatever, studies, notes, blah blah blah. I want to listen to patients, examine their problems, blah 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 blah, and like all of the things that doctors do. Then you can go, okay, my goal is to do these things, and in the process of doing these things, I'm likely going to become a doctor in the process, because my goal is to do these things, rather than I'm going to do these things because my goal is to become a doctor. And a doctor is just the example I chose because it's a bit clear, but like you can choose like entrepreneur, right? It's like I want to spend all of my time building this business that's going to make the product I want to create in the world, and in the process, I'm going to have to I'm going to be running a business. But like it's about what you're going to be doing, that you design your goal around, and what you become might change. You may not be become an entrepreneur. Maybe you'll work for a company, but you're or like someone, but you're high enough to design your own product, or you can or like they believe what you believe, and you can convince them that this product is good, or that kind of thing, right? It's like what you become can change. That's dynamic. So you should and obviously what you do can change, or what you want to be doing can change, but you should make your decisions based on what you want to do, because what you become, the things you want come with costs, and you have to understand that the cost is partly the action. So if you're going to hate the actions as part of the cost, you're probably not going to enjoy actually getting this thing that you look at and think is great. These are all kind of related, so I'm actually just going to count this as one journal entry and call it for the day.